to Career Convos. Today, I'm really excited because I have Terrell here with me, and he is going to be sharing his experience and his background with us in the field of engineering. And Terrell, why don't you go ahead and start by giving us a brief overview and summary of kind of your background and how you ended up where you are today?
Okay. Well, I think I really started my career in 2011 when I graduated from Tulsa Tech with my A&P license, airframe and power plant license. Uh, I came down to Oklahoma from Minnesota to become an aircraft mechanic. So when I graduated, I went straight to work the same month at BizJet, where I stood there. I stayed there for about 5 to 6 years, just kind of working my way up the corporate ladder. I loved working on aircraft, and what we did was modify the airframe structure of the aircraft. We did a little maintenance here and there, but it was mainly modification. And there's one point where there was a auxiliary field modification project that I was in charge of, and pretty much I aced it. And ever since then, I was leading the way for all the Airbus A320 field modifications. And I guess when everybody's seen that, I got moved my. I was sorry. Let me kind of back up. I was originally working there and going to school after I got my A&P license. I wanted to go back to go to school for it to be engineer, and they offered me a position in the engineering department so I could work and go to school at the same time. That was
Awesome.
amazing. I worked on two great mechanical system engineers who were not only well, I was the person that was installing it, I became the person that was designing the thing.
So
And then I was able to work.
you had some tactile
I'm sorry?
experience. You had some tactile experience doing the actual, and then you sort of moved into a new role where you were doing more
Yes.
of the designing or
Yep. I actually got promoted into engineering department. And that way I was actually was able to work under aerospace engineer and a mechanical engineer. Um, so I was able to see design and engineering behind everything. And then
awesome.
the best thing about it, my boss was a PE, which was pretty much the big thing of engineers. That's the ultimate goal. So I was able to get a lot of experience with what he was able to do.
That's a
But
professional engineer, right?
yes, it is exactly. Sorry. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. So then what did you do after that?
After that, I ended up leaving after layoff announcements and went to American Airlines for a little bit. And I was strictly on technical documentation. I actually got hired as an engineer. I consider myself a glorified technical writer.
Mm,
But once I spent that year there, I got offered a position at Infinite Composites, where we made composite pressure vessels. That job was amazing. I went back into the operations department, but instead of working as a mechanic, I was leading the department. And I was able to help pretty much turn their art into science because he was a business person, people that wanted to have kind of like what they call a unicorn technology. It was all composite pressure vessel that wasn't normal. Fuel tanks is always metal. All the ones I modified was metal and are hybrids, but this was all composite. It was very highly sought after in the aerospace and space sector. So I was able to help them generate a QMS or quality management system so they could track all the defects, the good product, to know kind of how good their product really was. And I'm still there as of today. But about a year ago, I just started a 3D printing company called 3D Dynamics. And that's kind of where I'm trying to lead on to right now. And just because additive manufacturing has been the forefront of everything in aerospace and advanced manufacturing, and I see it every single day more and more. I realize it's going to be the future. I'm in everything, not just aerospace and all industries. I'm trying to get in that boat and ride it and sail it away with it.
okay, so you're gonna have to explain that a little bit more to me, what that exactly is, and simplify it a bit so I can understand, because I don't know a lot of the technical language you do.
No problem. Most of the stuff, usually in aerospace or anything that requires high precision manufacturing, usually require CNC machines, where just removes a little bit of the pieces until it gets to the right precise part. Um, Pretty much the exact opposite is here in manufacturing, where it's called additive manufacturing. What I just described was subtractive manufacturing. So
Okay.
additive manufacturing does the opposite by adding pieces until it gets you the precise parts. Sometimes it could be a rough cut and you just clean it up to make it nice and precise. But or you could just go from the bottom up and get it exactly where you want, um, and go from there.
Awesome.
And that was kind of a new technology, so it's still in its infancy.
Okay, awesome. I haven't even heard of that. So you used the experience. You started out at a technical school, you got a certification, you got a job, you started getting experience, you got promoted, you had a job change, and you've got promoted again or and put into a new role, and you sort of, as you've gone through this process, you've been able to identify a need of something that you can service. And so now you're working and you also kind of have this side hustle that you're developing and working on. That's probably more your passion, right? You would say?
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly right.
Awesome. All right. So what is your actual job title right now?
So I am the operations manager at
Okay.
Infinite Composites Technologies.
Okay. Awesome. And why don't you tell me about the best parts of that job? What are the things that you enjoy the most?
So, like I mentioned earlier, it's a composite manufacturing facility that makes pressure vessels, which is pretty much composite tanks.
Mhm.
The best thing I like about it is our product we offer to the customer is completely customizable. So it's usually a one-off, or it's always different from each. It's not always the same product, and that's one thing I like because there's always a challenge. And that's one thing that I kind of got bored of. A lot of companies is doing the same thing over and over, and
Mhm.
this always gave me, kept me on my toes. I want to get complacent, I want to get bored in a
Mhm.
company. So the best thing is just being able to do something and then get a little change up with the different type of composites or materials, um, because nobody else is really doing it. So it's kind of a new
Right. It's new every time.
research.
It's new every time. So you
Exactly.
have to kind of be creative a little bit in your thinking and come up with new solutions. So problem solving is important too. Okay. And so what do you feel like the things that you've done that have been really key in helping you to get to this successful point in your life? Like, what are some of the decisions that you made or the actions that you took that you feel were the most helpful?
I would say have a plan. No matter what company I was at, where I was at in life, I had the same goal. And like I mentioned earlier, I was going to school and I moved up in the industry. And technically, I'm still going to school. I'm at my final phase in school,
Awesome.
but the plan stayed the same. It might have changed different directions, different majors, but I was always the nature of the work was the same because the plan was always the same. And that was to get my degree and then work in the field of aerospace, and which is what I'm doing. And then staying persistent with your plan, sticking with it. And like I mentioned earlier, it changes, so it don't have to be rigid. But as long as you got the same end goal and you're happy at what you want to do.
Yeah, I love that. I think sometimes it is just that mindset that you're talking about sometimes is more important than, you know, doing one specific thing. It's just having a mindset of, I'm going
Exactly.
for this general direction and I'm going to have to be flexible.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So in your field of composite engineering, I guess is that a safe?
I don't like to use the word engineering just because I'm not really engineer.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm still going to school, so
Okay. So composite
at this
manu
point,
what's
yeah,
that?
composite manufacturing, aerospace
Okay.
manufacturing.
Okay.
Um, like,
So
like, like
I think that's fair. So in the field of composite manufacturing, aerospace manufacturing, why don't you tell me what some of the challenges are that you see or
um,
in your job as in the job that you do?
okay. So the biggest challenges is materials. A lot of things are going towards composites, which used to be just sheet metal structures, and those are a lot more predictable. And a lot of research has been done on that. While the biggest challenge I see is this is not knowing what the materials you get to work with, per se. So and directly affecting me, I work with a lot of different materials every day, and some are so new you don't really know the long term effects of it. So just the safety and hazard, the job hazards that comes with it, because it is research. Those are some challenges that you might not be aware of, that could affect you. Um, yeah. What else?
So do you feel
So
like
what was the last?
you feel like the industry is growing though, and or what do you feel like the trend is for the industry? Are they hiring? What's what's kind of the pulse that you have?
I think that the industry is growing for the better, and the reason why I said it because aerospace has always been known as big manufacturers, and big people like big companies like Lockheed Martin, American Airlines. I mean, if you're not part of a big organization, you're not really heard of, you're not really doing anything. And now with the SpaceX and the Virgin Galactics, they might be still a bigger company, but you also got a lot smaller company that relativity, and some other companies that is small launch companies that there's like hundreds of companies coming out, small business that is trying to get a piece of the space market because um, additive manufacturing itself made it possible. For example, I do a lot of stuff in my garage as my side hustle that actually applies to my industry right now, and that helps my company. And it's because the different composite materials you can make. And the key thing is everything must be lighter because 1 kilogram of a weight costs about $1 million. I'm
Oh my
sorry,
gosh.
just $1,000. And you don't want to be careless on how much weight you're putting on the aircraft. So the lighter the better, you're going to save a lot of money.
Mm,
And everything's becoming lighter because you can manufacture a lot faster, better, and more complex materials. So
wow.
it's growing in every different way. I'm excited for the next 10 years.
So you feel like there's just a lot of innovation coming
Oh
up
yes.
in the manufacturing industry. That is fascinating. I did not know that. So what do you feel like some of the most important skills that you need to have in order to be successful? As
Oof.
maybe you could speak to this in two ways, I would like you to. One as an employee in your job, and then the other as an owner.
Okay. Um, well, I'll say the first one's the easier part because I've been employed for a lot longer than
Yeah.
owning my own business. Uh, but skills is for I would have to divide it. I would say the two different types of skills: hard skills and soft skills.
Yeah,
So a lot of stuff I do is a lot of hard skills, and so if you wanted to get into hands-on environments, you have to have both, no matter where you're at. But attention to detail is huge in aerospace. Knowing every little word, exactly what it means, not just guessing or putting up for interpretation. Because when you're reading technical documents, when you're working up on blueprints, it's not up for interpretation
right.
because history shows when stuff fails or it's not interpreted right, lives are lost. And
Mhm.
aerospace is one of the most highest risk industries there is. So attention to detail is huge. Being motivated, be able to get the job done. Don't be having that ego to say I got hired just to do this one thing only. Working at a big company, you may be able to get away with that, but small companies where a lot of more mediocre companies, they're not so big, intermediate companies, they expect to have multiple hats, and that's going to be huge in aerospace because when I got my A&P mechanic, I'm sorry, my airframe and power plant mechanic license, it wasn't just doing one thing. That's what it's called airframe and power plant because I'm capable of working on every part of the aircraft from electrical all the way down to the structural. So and you have to have that little attention to detail for everything because one thing get missed and it's that's the end of the life. So
Right.
makes a big difference.
Yeah, and it's costly. Any mistakes are like you were talking about the cost of those materials, So that can be kind of high pressure. Making sure you've got all your ducks in a row is really important when it comes to
Yeah.
that. And I'm sure there's lots of protocols in place to double check and things like that. But I like that you bring up the interpreting too. Sometimes being clear and communicating, making sure you've got things right. And then how about being a business owner? Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you've learned so far? What does that take?
Well, takes a lot of commitment, a lot of persistence, um, and you have to have some kind of idea or some dream to hold on to because for me, like right now, most maybe everybody I know may not see it, but me. But you know, that's the difference between the Elon Musk and the Jeff Bezos and the Steve Jobs. Being that person that can say, "Hey, I'm going to make a difference through this organization I'm building," um, and putting your best skills at it. The hardest part, I would say, I think on both sides of employee and being a business owner is finance. I think that no matter how good your idea is, how great you can run your organization, if you're running out of money, you're running out of money. So
Right.
you have to be able to make. Yeah, it still has to be a good business model.
Mhm.
And that's the challenge is making it a profitable organization. So the difference you can make and share to the world can be financed. So you can do that.
Right. Well, and when you talk about it, I can feel the energy from you. I can feel that this is very exciting for you. And to me, that when you're if you're going to follow a business or try to start your own business, you have to have that fire. You have to have that, like you said, commitment to keep at it because it is difficult and challenging. And like you said, it's doing something new all on your own. So there's going to be a lot of failure or mishaps and challenges.
Yeah.
And were you able to secure extra funding, or are you just growing it ground up, or how are you managing it?
We're as of right now, I'm growing it ground up. But yes, I'm still looking for funding. Like you mentioned earlier, it's just a side gig right now, so I'm not putting a lot of full time effort into it. But yes, I am still trying to grow.
Yeah,
And like I mentioned earlier, I'm still going to school, so it's not the number one
right,
priority yet.
right. You've got a lot of a lot of what do they call it? Hands in the fire, or what are these? Irons in the fire?
Yeah.
That's the saying. Okay, so why don't you tell me a little bit about how work-life balance has been for you as you've gone through, I mean, as you've had your A&P and then working through aerospace and up to now. Why don't you kind of tell me about the work life?
Well, working as an aerospace mechanic or aircraft mechanic, it's tough. It's not your normal, automotive mechanic, and I kind of learned that the hard way, just because I didn't know nothing about aircraft starting growing up. I thought it was just the next best thing after a car mechanic, and I realized that you have to go with the market. So if the industry is slow, you may be getting laid off, and so you have to be prepared to be able to get up and go on the road and just to make ends meet for your family. Luckily, I was not I'm able to have that issue. I was able to stay and rooted. I'm in Oklahoma since I graduated, so I'm very blessed for that. But everybody, all my friends, everybody that graduated, they all left town, and some wants to come back, but they need to make the money. So that it's a little it's rough, but it's not as bad as like military life. As I hear military, it stems from military life because it's aerospace, but you still got to travel to really get what you need in the industry.
And so what you're saying is because the airline industry tends to have its ups and downs, that sometimes you are affected by the shifts in the industry. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't really clarify that. That's more of a mechanic's perspective.
Mhm.
And when it comes to like my since and I think that's why I went more into composite and aerospace manufacturing. Um, I'm not really um, at, I'm not really at the mercy at as volatile industry now, mainly because uh, uh, I'm getting to more bigger organizations, so which is a long-term contracts that is usually once you get the contract, you're set for a long term, and then it's a slow moving process. And the good thing about that, I wasn't our company wasn't really affected much by COVID as bad as other companies was. We were still able to stay working and keeping the job. But yeah, in manufacturing, I think it was a lot more stable than aerospace, even though it is part of aerospace. But it
Interesting.
it's not directly as bad as airlines.
So when you went and got your A&P and you started working in aircraft manufacturing, um, did you expect to be where you are now, or was that a change?
No, no, I did not at all. I expect to still kind of be in engineering. Now I'm really in management. Um, and it's still not too bad because I'm really deep into the engineering side department too. So I'm not really missing any part of engineering at all.
Mhm.
If I really wanted to get any information I want to learn in engineering, I could. But my ultimate, like I said, I still have a plan to get my degree, and I didn't really clarify my plan is to get my PhD. So I still got a few more years to go, and everything I'm working towards is still towards that. So yeah,
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I have one last question for you, which is, what do you wish you had known about your field before you began?
it existed. I don't really know much about can there's a but how they did their work, what was the difference between how aircraft was built versus cars were built. And I think a lot of this stuff I learned when I was young, but I had a kind of a different childhood growing up because I like to say I grew up in a museum. Um, I volunteered a lot in the science museum, so I think that's why I'm really big in science. But in school, they didn't really teach you anything about the positions, about who you want to be when you grow up, firefighter, pilot, but what does it take to be a pilot? What
Mhm.
does it take to be a police officer? A lot of that stuff requires just basic trade school, or a few classes outside of during high school, or a PhD. But I don't. That's the one thing I think I didn't get in traditional schools was that.
Yeah, I think, and that's part of the reason why I'm here is because I'm trying to help spread a little bit more about the options that are available, and especially things with trade school. Like Tulsa Tech is an awesome school. They have so many good programs. And like you said, your eyes get opened as you get older as to all the possibilities. And it would be nice to have a little bit more knowledge about some of the things that are out there. Well, I really appreciate you sharing your history with us a little bit today. And I think it will inspire somebody else to pursue their something that they feel passionate about. I can tell the one thing you did right was follow your interest. And that small choice of volunteering at a science museum really probably did make a huge impact in leading you down this path. So I just appreciate you sharing that message with us today.
No problem.
Okay.
This episode of Career Convos is brought to you by Aligned Ambition. If you're looking for help while preparing to enter the workforce, need tools to build your resume, or are looking for guidance in finding a career path that is a great fit for you and your personal strengths, click on the link in the show notes to learn more about what Aligned Ambition has to offer.